Alright, so I want to talk about doxing and my overall opinion on it, and I'm going to do a deep dive on this to explain how we got to this point. Anyways, this is OTR Ogre in Corrigan. If you like what I'm doing, like, link, and subscribe, comment if you so choose. Let's get into this. I can't emphasize this enough. When I look at the situation, there are some basic pillars. PC culture, that was once a nice casual, nice idea, and then there's the debt we keep, and then there's the situation where people really don't have any real problems, so that's part of the reason they give a crap about this garbage. So, looking at PC culture, well, yeah, we came out of the 60s, the 70s, there was a lot of backwater ideas back then, but people were getting along, starting to get together. And so, eventually it did become like, hey man, you shouldn't say this word. And someone would argue this was like, some of this was Marxism and whatnot, you know, trying to class divide people. Instead of being, hey, you're working, I'm working, we're both good people, it's like, you're oppressed because I happen to have this color of skin, you have that color of skin, all this garbage. And then you ask yourself, who benefits from this? Well, lawyers, politicians, academics, basically a bunch of communists that call themselves Democrats. You know, people that want to cause outrage also do it. So you have the people that will go out there and stoke a fire up. So that might even be the same Democrats stoking the fire up. So they can have an example like a false flag. But generally it's the people that, you know, want to sell you this nonsense of like, hey, you're oppressed. And you're like, am I? I felt fine yesterday, but now I'm apparently oppressed. But if you do that for a whole life, you gaslight somebody for their whole fucking life. Like, you start out as a kid and you have your parents that were told this ridiculous claim. You know, the ridiculous lie. By the way, great video by Dark Matters. You're told this your whole life about how you're a victim, how you're this. And the objective sometimes is people use this as an excuse for their own inaction in their lives. Like, no, I'm a victim of this social structure, white power, blah, blah, blah. And then even white people have found a way to claim this crap. Oh, I'm disabled, I have the huzz. I straight stole that from Aaron Clary. By the way, highly recommend him. The point of it is that these people took a good concept of don't be a douchebag, like, don't be a racist, bigoted schmuck, and they turned it into, you better not say what we think you said. Or, even worse, hey, I think you said this thing. And you know what? I'm going to, we're going to sue your company unless you adhere to what we say. Now, why does this have any power? Because you notice in countries like China or a lot of other countries, they don't give a crap about this. Someone says an off-color joke, they're just like, whatevs. Why it has power is because you can get people fired from their jobs. Now, the version of this in China would be, hey, you said something against the government, and then the CCP's on your ass, which arguably, which is worse? The mob mentality of America or the Chinese government basically trying to ruin you because you have the wrong opinion or wrong thing. Like, they tell you, hey, you quiet down, quit saying something. And you're like, no, I'm not going to do that. And they're like, no, you're going to quiet down or we're going to fucking ruin your life. Well, we have a social media version of that with the PC culture / mob mentality. It would have absolutely no power if you weren't in debt. So on one side, you could look at what goes on in communism and say, because you own nothing, the government owns everything. The government can decide if you have the wrong opinion, we're gonna stop you from having food, shelter. You know, we're gonna send you a place where you can relearn how to think correctly, and maybe die in the process being worked building shoes, like a shoe factory called a gulag. And so that's how they keep control over there. They limit what you'll have. They'll limit the benefits that you'll have through your life. As where in America, it's this weird thing where they get you in debt. So instead of being like a slave via communism, you're a slave as it would be put to banks, interest loans. Like, you know, your student loans, you know, these same people that claim communism and socialism's the way, you know, that course that you probably got done for, you know, 2 years or, you know, a year, 3 years would be a year if you did it online or, you know, you did all these things another way. No, they want you basically to have a huge amount of debt, and they want to control to some degree how you can get your education. So that way, when they say, so let's say you need 100 credits to pass, but the course only gives you 75. So, hey, we have these other 25 other credits, and they happen to be this crazy, you know, Afro-nationalist, black nationalist, and he's going to tell you why you're white and you're evil. So you have these kids that even though this might have been the happiest time of their lives. They're young adults, they're drinking, they're smoking, you know, they're having a good time, and they're like, yeah, man, all this equality crap, but it's all on a basically on loan. So what happens is these kids go and they get this bogus shit put in their head, and then some of these kids don't even get real education, so they owe anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 or more for what is either an oversaturated market, so there's no job for you that's paying shit. You would have been better off getting a truck driver's license and just saving the money paying cash for a house. Go to a farm town and pay $50,000 for a house in your early 20s and like, I'm debt free, you know, versus these people who go out and spend 4 years of their life. You know, how many years are they going to be paying off this debt now? Because most of them are trained in the standard American style or Western style, like, hey man, I've got to have the car, the clothes, this, that, the whole lifestyle. Like, I'm living vastly in debt in order to have my life. And then plus the student loans you see in that situation. This basically sets up the situation where if they would question anything, they're not gonna. Like, let's say you got a $300,000 house, and your wife has $100,000 in debt for some worthless vapid degree, and she barely brings in any money, and eventually she's going to have kids, so she's going to be at home anyways. And then you've got the husband who actually got a good degree, but he's like Atlas, you know, carrying the weight of the world. And if he says one wrong thing, they're going to turn on the meat grinder that's standing right under him. Like, it's just going to grind his ass. So this is where doxing actually gets its power, because basically nobody would listen to this crap, nobody would care about this crap, and people would probably kick a few more asses if they could stand up. But because they have all this debt holding them back, these PC authoritarians, or just, it's not even just about PC, it might just be political authoritarians. You disagree with what we say. This is the same shit you saw back in the day with religious people too. The Bible thumpers, you don't believe in Jesus, you don't worship God, you know, like, how many people simply said throughout countless ages, yes, of course I believe in God. They'll claim how all these scientists believed in God. No, a lot of them said they believed in God because it was better than being outcast by society for having the wrong opinion. So it was a matter of controlling people's resources. That's really what it is. Then this is where we come down to doxing. Some people will tell me there might be a justified reason to dox people sometimes, like this person's cheese pizza. Okay, you're saying that they're, you know, if you don't know what cheese pizza means, look it up. But they're basically have an opinion, they're evil, why don't you take this to the police? If they're doing something illegal, why don't you take it to the cops? That's what you got to ask yourself. Why are you trying to be the person eliciting mob justice? And part of it is like a lot of these people that do this crap, number one, they don't have any real problems. You know, they're like, I have no real problems, but I'm bored and I need to fight something to justify why the fuck I exist. And so basically they find someone who disagrees with whatever their opinion is, whether it's video games, political opinions, religion, whatever, and their attitude is, you can't have that opinion. Why? Why? Why is it so important? And moreover, why can't you just block that person? You know, you go online and they're a douchebag, just block them. And they're like, well, they'll make another account. Okay, maybe build private chat rooms where you can have your private opinions. It's a members-only club, and you have to be approved to be in there. And if you bring someone in who turns out to be a fucko, you both get kicked out. So it causes people to censor themselves. They're like, I'm not going to self-select, I should say. They select better when they know they've got something to lose. So you can actually have your honest conversations. And then you have the open arena style where, of course, there's going to be some trolls and some douchebags. But for the most part, you can just block people like, well, that person's a doucher. Occasionally, I say just troll people back. And the other option is even in the sort of open arena or open format, mute people. You don't want to hear what they have to say, and you know it's going to piss you off. Just mute them. And then you'll see, it's funny, you'll see one of these people in the thread, and you're like, oh yeah, that guy's a douchebag. God, I'm glad I muted them. You know, but if somebody else wants to argue that point, they can argue it as much as they want. It's freedom of choice, freedom of speech. But there's a lot of people out there that they can't stand the idea that you're even talking about it and you're making a logical argument. Like, the one that pisses off a lot of people that I found is like mathematical mindset, where you're like, okay, mathematically disprove what I'm saying, and they're like, what? I was just outraged and having a triggered moment, but what do you mean math? Like literally, your problems can be probably statistically calculated, and can mathematically calculate. Like, most of your problems have to do with the way you spend your money, how you work, how you live, the choices you make, and these choices have outcomes, and this can easily be calculated. And you point out, like, a simple plan where people can actually make it, and they're like, no, I don't want to do that. And so they just get more outraged and like, well, then you're just stupid. You know, like, you're choosing your self-inflicted oppression. It's like, what pisses off some people, I'll say this, the greediest people I've ever seen are generally the poor. And I'm not kidding when I say that, because if you have nearly endless time to improve yourself in a country that has free programs for trades and all this other stuff, like, they're really trying to get you to be somewhere better, and all you do is choose to be a fuck-up, yeah, you're a greedy fuck. You're literally parasiting off other people's slavery is what it is. It's not charity. It's slavery. They're forced to pay this. It's like slavery via percentages, essentially. Like, well, how much of my life is given away? Like, so let's say you paid 30% of your life in taxes. So every 10 years, there's 3 years that you are giving away to other people. How can you not say that person over there on the other side is greedy? But the moment you point this type of crap out, these people will lose their fucking minds. And why? Because, let's be honest about it, that's all they have. All they have is their outrage. They don't have any success. They don't have anything to show for it. And even then you have the people who actually are successful in this situation. But what it is they're trying to gather enough people. They're trying to be the leader and get the power of the mob on their side. It's really a sign that you have no problems in your life, by the way. Like, there's nothing. What is your problem? Nothing. But looking at it, I don't ever see a case where somebody doxes somebody for a good reason. It's always petty outrage. Like, you want to see that person get hit, you know, a mob of people show up and brutalize them. That's all it is. And it wouldn't have any power if there was, like, if, number one, you weren't in debt, so you weren't afraid to say what you say, because a lot of these PC authoritarians wouldn't exist. And then the other factor is that if there was real punishment, I got a way to solve a lot of those problems. Think about this one for a second. Imagine for a second that if it's proven that you dox somebody and some fuck shit happens to them, or fuck that, like, if you dox them, there's actually a fine for it. Okay, so the difference between rich people doxing somebody and poor people, because I'm going to point this out, because one of the problems of our legal system is it's set up to where if you're broke-ass fucking poor, and I'll use the women as an example, you can make a false rape allegation against a guy, and if you don't have anything, what's he going to do, sue you? Oh, you don't have anything. So he wins $9 million. You don't have anything. Where are they going to take it from? Are they going to put you in jail for that? And that's why I think a lot of these things should have criminal convictions. Like false allegations and doxing and stuff. Yeah, you get fucking put in jail for that shit. And if you got money, they can sue you for it. But I take it a step further. If you happen to have a family member that's on the government subsidies, government, you know, payout like welfare or any of that, or you have someone who's on a government job, and one of your, like, family members, your kids or something, someone in your household does some fuck shit like this, yeah, you get kicked off the system. That way, poor people can't use that, like, oh, I'm broke, what are you going to take from me, you know, defense. You know, and then, because, you know, with rich people, they screw up like this. You want an example where you start seeing a change in this, like, I think it was a Title IX situation with the colleges, where basically they had people making false allegations against men on, you know, sexual allegations, and then basically star chambers type of situations in colleges. Well, what ends up happening is that eventually enough of these colleges got sued because of the violations of these individual men's rights. You know, like, these colleges got fucking hosed in court. But the only reason they changed what they were doing is because they were losing money. And so you could take that a step further. Sorry, dog's having a little dream right now. But you could have all these people that are doing all this shit and broke, and they're like, well, what are you going to take? Well, okay, well, you're permanently kicked off any sort of federal benefits, no loans, no anything like that. Any relatives? Yeah, we're going to reduce or kick them off the benefits because you're a schmuck. And watch how quickly all this shit gets real civil. Like, people just start, you know, like, they block people. Okay, I don't like the guy, I'll block him, or I'll mute him, or whatever. I just want to interact with them. And people go about their day because they're like, oh, shit, yeah, don't be a douchebag. I'll tell you the truth. Back in the day, say there was a bar fight, someone got punched in the face, people were a lot more civil. Like, because they're like, hey, I don't want to have that happen, so I'm not going to be a douchebag. They're not going to be a douchebag, and we all get along together. Anyways, this is OTR Ogre and Corgi, and hey, it's a long video, but I said it was a deep dive, so, you know, if you like what I'm doing, like, link, subscribe, comedy so choose. Anyways, y'all have a good day. Remember, don't be a douchebag.